Okay,
Excellent.
so we're on.
Hello. Well, hi again, everyone. So, good morning, good afternoon. Let's do it again. My name is Cecile. I'm the project manager for OpenSpending, and I'm really happy to see you all and to welcome you all today on this Tech Hangout meeting. I'm here with my colleague Paul, Rufus, and Daniel, and we're going to update you with our latest developments. We're going to demo you also what we will lately working on, and of course we will open a discussion around the latest topics that we're also working on. So before we can introduce everyone, I just want to thank you all if you're watching right now. If you're watching whatever, you can always join us on Twitter on OpenSpending or on the Open Knowledge account. So if everyone can just shortly introduce themselves so we can have a roundtable on who is here and what is working on. Over
I'll start,
to you.
okay?
Yeah.
I'll start. So, Paul Walsh, work with Open Knowledge and technical lead on OpenSpending. Yeah, been involved in it from the beginning of talking about the plans for OpenSpending Next and work on the roadmap that we're moving along now. Also work on other projects at OpenSpending to do with frictionless data and other fiscal data projects.
I can go now. I'm Dan Fowler. I also work with Open Knowledge, and I'm a bit newer to the Open Spending project. But yeah, it's been going great so far, and yeah, hopefully you'll be interested in what I'm demoing with everyone else.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
We should probably say that despite the flag, you're actually based in Addis Ababa, not in New Zealand.
Right.
It's the Australian flag.
That was Australia.
Australian flag.
Oh my God! Oh no.
You've got two
The one
Australians.
with the star.
You've got two Australians on the call.
Don't worry, New Zealand's about to change their flag, theoretically.
Yeah. I wish we would too. But anyway, another story. Okay.
Okay, who's next? I can see.
Shall we just move across, like so it's easier? Maybe Steve, you want to go now?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Steve Bennett. I'm based in Melbourne, in Australia. I volunteer with Open Knowledge here, do lots of maps like this one here. And my involvement in this is for a project called Open Economy, which I'm working on with one of our Green senators here. So mostly I'm just sort of waiting semi-patiently for specs to stabilize and stuff to become a bit more concrete, so I can sort of use it and give a real use case and feedback with the tools and the specs.
Okay. Rufus?
You're muted.
You're muted.
I know. Unfortunately, it's opening a new window, which is annoying. Hi, I'm Rufus Pollock. I'm founder and president of Open Knowledge, and I've been long involved in open spending, in fact, from the beginning. And so, where does my money go? So I'm excited here, and today I'm going to talk a little bit maybe about the fiscal data package, budget data package spec.
Okay. Nikesh?
Yes. So, hello everyone. I'm Nikesh. Hello, from Nepal. I'm Open Government Working Group Team Lead for Open Knowledge Nepal, and I do love I do love to work lots on government budget, and looking forward to talk to you guys.
Great, welcome.
Great. Yeah, welcome, Nikesh.
Hello.
Indrek?
Hi, I'm Indrek Minář. I'm from Czech Republic, from Prague, and I'm currently representing the OpenBudgets.eu Horizon 2020 project, which basically is a project that extends open spending towards budget data. And I'm here mostly to catch up with what's new and exciting in open spending.
It is all new and exciting. Okay. Well, thank you. And Friedrich?
Hi, I'm Friedrich. I'm joining you from Sarajevo, where I'm working for the OCCRP, and I'm also working in my own time on a modernized version of the original open spending code base called Spendiby.
Excellent. Nice to meet you. And we have someone else attending. We have Fabrizio, maybe you want to give a few words?
Hi, yeah. Sorry, I have some connection problems, so my call was dropping a bit. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'm Fabrizio from Fraunhofer IAIS, working on open budgets project, and really very interested in the development of open spending, as Jindrich already mentioned. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Yeah, we're a bunch of people in the Open Budget EU project, which I am also part myself, and Paul as well is involved, one of us. Okay,
Anna.
so yeah,
Anna,
and Anna?
last but not least, yes.
Here, hello.
Hey. Hi.
Here at Open Knowledge Germany, I'm also part of the Open Budgets team, and we're responsible for the dissemination. And with me is Mara Mendes from the DigiWist.
Yes. Hi, my name is Mara. I work on the DigiWist project for OPApp Germany. DigiWist is also a spending-related project related to public procurement, and we work on 35 jurisdictions, including the EU and EEA countries and neighboring countries, with consortium partners. So that's why I'm joining. Hi.
Okay. Okay. Well, nice to meet you. Right. So to give a bit of context, as you all know, but maybe the people that are watching don't know, the Open Spending project is a community-driven project, and we aim at creating the world's largest and, I guess, quality database on public finance. We can find the project on.
Just to say,
sorry?
Does everyone have the slides, or know that they've got access to the slides for this part of it? Just to check, does everyone on the call have access to the slides? That they're embedded in the forum.
In the forum.
Okay.
If you're on the forum, maybe someone could drop the forum link on the side. If you just go to the forum link, I think it would be better to link the forum. Yeah.
Yes. Sure.
Okay. Sorry to jump in there just to make sure that everyone had that.
Okay. So yeah, you can. Yeah, I just want to introduce just a little bit before we start, and I give, yeah. So, so the project has been launched 6 years ago, and from the past 6 years it has been expanded, and many people work on it, and it's been really, really big. The past few months we work on the revamping, maybe as you know, and the objective of this taking out is also to update you on what has been done since the past Hangout in June, how we're heading to, what our next objective, what we have been working on, and what are the next steps, and of course give you some time to discuss about the next steps on about your own project and how everyone can contribute to open spending, and how we are all like we can all make things get better together. So let's just maybe start with the first person who is presenting and demoing, which is.
So, would you mind if I just give a tiny bit of additional context, particularly Nikesh, for example, who hasn't been here before, and it's always good to recap where we're at. So, is that okay if I just for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, of course.
So, for people who are in the slide deck, does everyone? I'm just going to check. Does anyone not see the slide deck in the Discuss forum or either directly? Great. I assume everyone's got it. So the thing that I just want to talk about very briefly here is just at the very start, people can see, and we'll then come to it, but it's just the background. Cecile's gone over the kind of content of the project. We're talking here really about the platform. There's a whole bunch of other parts of the project, particularly community engagement, actually getting data in, which is going on right now. But in particular, and Nikesh is really relevant to you, but all the other people who are using the platform, is there's this kind of upgrade going on. And the idea is to enable, just as much as before, if not more, both people to upload data, but also people to build their own sites. I think a key thing we get is that people want to build out their own local OpenSpending or where does money go sites or whatever they are, but also maybe be storing that data in OpenSpending or using some of the tooling. So one of the other aspects of the platform is not only is it built around a central database, but it's also got a lot of tools that can be used yourself on your own database, but also enable you to build your own where does my money go site running off the central database. So there's kind of three options there, and maybe I'm now thinking I should really have a little slide on that at some point to illustrate that. And just to maybe Paul, you want to mention on the roadmap overview, like slides 7, 8, and 9 here in the deck, which is just, there's a presentation from June that gave a lot more detail, but slides 8 and 9, slide 8 here, I mean, maybe Paul can say stuff as well, but I'll just give it, this is trying to say end-to-end. The idea is people want to go from the bottom of this, which is the user has a CSV, to doing analysis and presentation at the top. That's what you want to do. You want to go, and what do we need to do to enable that? Is these various things. You need to be able to have this module that allows people to import data. You need to store it. You need to be able to then do analytics on it, like aggregate data or search it or otherwise. You want to visualize it, and then you want to, you want to do maybe your own analysis and presentation. And we're working our way through that stack. And in particular, slide 9, which kind of does invert the direction the other way up. So this time you start with the CSV at the top, but that's life. Is trying to just say what a kind of the minimal viable product we're trying to build at the moment. So in a sense, and we could kind of, it's not quite shown on the side of like what we're doing, but essentially, given a CSV, we need to kind of model and describe it. Then you need to, the most basic thing you want to do is take a CSV and get a visualization. That's the kind of minimal viable product that most people who I think come and use OpenSpending want to do. They've got their spreadsheet, they've got some spending data, and they want a visualization, or they want to do a table or something out of it. So we're trying to do the minimum that we can do to deliver that in a really great way, a really great experience. And that's, you've got your CSV, you're going to have a user interface to kind of check it, validate it, model it. Then you're going to be able to aggregate it, and then you're going to be able to visualize it. And that's what we're really going to work on. And some of the work that's going to be described here is the work around building that chain, and building that minimal viable product.
One question, Rufus. So in this, do people need to prepare the CSV before they will upload it to OpenSpending?
So I think one of the answers at the moment is we'll seek that you have to do minimal preparation, and that the app will give you a lot of feedback. If you haven't done, one of the things I think that most of us who've used, I've certainly been a heavy user of OpenSpending myself, actually uploading data, is that the system by which you get data in is okay, but leaves a little bit to be desired at the moment. Things can go wrong, or it can be a little bit complicated. And I don't know, Nikesh or Steve or anyone else who's used it, it's a little bit painful sometimes to get your data in the right way that OpenSpending will kind of like it and let you do what you want. So one of the things there is to really improve that process, build on what's there, and give a really great process for giving users feedback, I think, about like, okay, your spreadsheet's great, or it's not quite right in this way, or whatever. So that's I think the plan. I don't know if anyone, Paul, or if anyone also has any feedback based on their experience. I mean, Nikesh, I know you've used it. I know, Steve, I think you've occasionally, or other people have used it. If there's any feedback, we're really eager to get it.
I have another question there.
You have another question. Okay, if you have a question now, do you want to ask it now or wait? You're welcome to ask now.
I don't know if you have an answer yet. So everything is sort of being overhauled and changing, right? So I'm just trying to understand, does it make sense to put stuff into the current OpenSpending database now? Will that sort of get altered when specs change? Or
great question.
Will there be a big kind of step function discontinuity in all that data?
We will migrate all the data, but to be honest right now, if you're on a call like this, I would encourage you to be connecting with particularly Daniel Fowler on the call, because basically we already have a process that we're already running that will allow you to start doing so yes, we'll migrate everything. And if you put stuff into openspending.org right now, but essentially, particularly if you're a little bit geeky, like if you know what GitHub is, if you know enough.
Oh no, I'm totally geeky. That's fine.
No, I know you are. I know you are. But like, if Nikesh, I don't know if you were interested or anyone else, we really want some alpha users right now who will try out the process that we're developing in that diagram on the alternative route. So to be really honest with you, basically, I would encourage you to connect with Dan and say, okay, I've got some data. Let's model it in the new way and try it through that process, because it's already working. As Dan's about to demo, so I should really be quiet.
Oh, okay.
We're basically, so I would say don't put in the old one, work with us in the new one. It's true that for about a month or two, the new one will develop, not in parallel, but until we've got like the bugs ironed out, and then there'll be a switch over, at which point we'll kind of migrate all the data and make the other one read-only. But right now, it's already the case that you could start modeling stuff. And I'd also emphasize, Steve, you're right, stuff has been moving, a bit of a moving target. I think stuff now is really settling down, certainly on the data package front.
Awesome.
And will be obviously there will be change as we trial it. There'll be things, I want to work with you, for example, because I'm kind of responsible at the moment for the spec, and like try it out on assets and liabilities and other things. I want to go through examples with people and see what doesn't work or what needs to be added. But basically, that's very much getting stabilized. I'll talk a bit more about that later. Okay, back to Cecile and back to the call.
Yeah, but just to continue, thank you. To continue about our status, we can maybe start talking about the roadmap overview, where we're at the moment, and this is maybe Paul can give a few words on it. So, Paul, over to you.
Sure. Rufus covered a lot of the background and the general things that most of the people in this call are quite aware of by now. I think that the best way to move into the next stages, like what we've been working on now, is actually to, first of all, we do have a live roadmap. I'm going to share the,
yes.
1 second, I'm going to share screen. 1 second. Oh, is that working, or is that just recursing into infinity for everyone?
The moment you switch, it should work. But there we go. Yeah. When you switched, it worked.
Rightio. So the roadmap.
It is.
There's just a high-level overview of what we're working on, what's done, what's next in the pipeline, let's say. Done, in progress right now. And other areas, like actually MVP registry. I'm going to move this to in progress because we're starting on that today, basically, which we'll talk about very briefly later. That's a place. This board is a place to go and see what's going on with what we're working on internally. I'm actually going to now pass on to Dan and then to Rufus, because over the last month, like 4 to 6 weeks, they've been responsible for most of the work, which is on spiking out solutions for aggregation of data and the data package specification itself. So I think we'll move straight through to Dan's work on aggregation now. So move down 2 slides to 14 and start to look at some actual work that's been going on. So on to you, Dan.
Exactly.
Great. Right, should I actually present this? Should I actually have this slide up presenting it, or should I just... Well, if everyone has a slide with the overview.
I'm looking forward to the live demo, Dan. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, you should screen share, man, if you can.
Oh, right. Sure, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Right. Okay. Is that good? You see that?
Yes, it was good until a moment ago. Yeah, that's good. There it is.
Okay. Right. So the overview that we're talking about here is we want to go from, as Rufus already said, you want to go from having a CSV of spending data and ultimately generate a visualization based on that spending data. So the steps, as we've sort of laid them out, are creating a data package. using that data that describe the sort of characteristics of that spending data, which direction it's flowing in, where in the world it is, what country it's describing, what currency the money is in, what particular moment the transaction has occurred in, whether it's approved or executed or just proposed. And then after that, you want to, we'd like to, well, we're thinking the way that this would work is you define an aggregate sort of definition over categories or over dimensions such as categories or time using SQL or something else more compact. And I'll show this to you in a second. And then based on that aggregate definition, you will generate CSVs using that definition, and then you'll run the visualization, whether it's a tree map, a bubble tree, or a time series directly from the aggregated CSVs. And I put a link there to the discuss forum where we're discussing.
Dan, just to say for me, your screen is just showing one thing at the moment. Is that
sure.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have my sure. Yeah, I can show. Yeah, I just have my terminal window, but I can also share the.
Are you going to maybe walk us through what you've just described?
Right. Yeah, I'll do that. Let me share the actual slides and terminal window. That might work. Okay. That's good.
All good.
Okay. No, that's not good. Okay. So currently we're trialing with the World Bank Boost databases of country spending data, and these are links to those particular demos. If you can click on these links, and you can see the sort of the way we've sort of gone about it so far. In this case, this is Boost Paraguay. It's got the visualization running from the source visualization based on an aggregated CSV that's represented down here under source CSV. And this code is running directly off the CSV. So using as few moving parts as possible. That's the idea. So going back to the presentation.
Dan, I just wondered, just for me, could you start us from the CS? Where do you start from? So you talked about this route. Let's say I had the CSV. Could you show us like what a CSV would look like, and then what this process would look like? So I've got a CSV file. Then what do? I create a data pack. Just walk me through from the kind of beginning. Like imagine you were Steve, I guess, or Nikesh, or someone who has a spreadsheet and they're going about this. Where would they start from? They'd start from a CSV on their hard disk or something. What would you?
Right.
How would it go?
Yeah, essentially, let me see if I could just share this again. So essentially, you would have your CSV in some sort of directory, and then
so it's in data, yeah.
In data. So in this case, we're using the standard data package sort of scaffolding, where we have an archive folder full of the original data, which in this case is an Excel file. In data, you have, in this case, it's a fully normalized data set where Boost Armenia here is the main table, and with foreign keys that point to all these supplementary tables, admin2, econ1, etc. So that's going to be the set of data you're going to work with, and I can actually show you what it looks like right now. Star Armenia. I have something very straightforward. I hope that still looks okay. That's still okay?
Looks like.
Okay, yeah. Well, obviously, a better representation would be, say, in an Excel program. But here's what the CSV looks like. Each each row is, a set of spending information that maps a particular government code and a year with a certain amount. And in this case, this one has some extra fields that I won't go into, but those fields can be described using the data package JSON, which we can create by doing something like dpm init.
Just show us the output. It's just fine to show us the output right now,
okay.
Dan. Don't worry. I think it would be great to show what it looks like and how it describes those files. That would be.
Here's the data package JSON right now, pointing to this Boost Armenia dataset. You have a name that specifies the actual name of the data package. You have a title where you can actually have a human readable title. And you have different sort of descriptions of the data. So in this case, the granularity is aggregated. The direction right now is expenditure. And
is that version, you've got the version 0.1, so that's not up to date with the latest 0.3?
That's not the version of the spec. That's the version of
the file. Okay.
Really tends to actually be underused. But it's like, you've released the 2017 data versus, it's more like that version, Steve. It's a good question.
Okay. Is the spec version recorded?
No, at the moment, well, it can be. My experience is people never do it consistently. So I tend to, it is an option to record the spec version, but it isn't in here at the moment. Because people often then don't do it, and then it's not, then you're non-compliant with the spec. But yeah, it's a good question. Maybe we should require it.
Right. And the data directory is basically represented here under the resources key in this JSON file. So each resources is basically an array filled with these objects. So this first one is the main CSV file, Boost Armenia, and the path is specified, and the basic schema of the CSV in that is specified here too. And for each field, you have a description a human readable description, and also a type. In this case, I'm defining all these codes as strings. And yes, and yeah, so that's the basic data package JSON. Was that good? Is that any questions about that?
One thing would be to show the measures maybe very, very quickly, like the actual dimension stuff at the very bottom might be very, like the additional thing to the basic schema. I mean, maybe one thing I can just add at this moment, because we'll relate to what I say later, which is there's an aspect of form and content. Essentially, we're providing a spec which says here's a form for your metadata. Here's how to describe it. The other aspect is the actual kind of what content do you expect of your data in a data package, in a financial fiscal data package. And at the moment, what we're doing is a fairly kind of like it's like you get to choose. We don't say to you your data, your CSV must have columns called, I don't know, function, or called I don't know, even amount. It might be called something else like budget or whatever the column is called. But we have the concept of that there are parts of the logical model or data content that could and sometimes should be there, but we provide a way to map to those. So your data, raw data, can have any kind of columns you like, but there's a way to map those to standardized ones. So I just think that's just giving context. What Dan's about to show is to say, okay, you've described your actual schema. That is very much describe your actual CSV. That's just saying like this is what the types of columns are and what they're called. But then the actual mapping to a logical model, the conceptual model, like this is actually the amount column, the column with money in it, or this is the date column, or this is the column which actually has COFOG classification codes in it. That comes in this different part of the spec called the mapping section, and that's what Dan's about to show you very quickly.
Right. So right, yeah, here's the mapping section that maps different physical fields to the logical equivalents. In this case, I'm just pulling straight from, from the source CSV's field approved directly to a measure called approved. But how it's represented logically can obviously change. In this case, we're also specifying date as another dimension. And the idea is that for all these to be, for all this information to be used directly by the visualization code that, and the aggregation code that I'm describing to you right now. Right now, it's all a bit manual. So, we're not pulling directly from the data package JSON just yet, but that, will be the next step to kind of make this into a sort of service, this whole process. So, so let me share my presentation again.
Maybe as you bring that up, the key point that's driving us as well at the moment, all the people watching, is we want to produce what Dan's showing us. Why do we bother modeling all of our data? Who cares? Like, we can go metadata mad and describe all kinds of parts of the data. If it doesn't allow us to do something useful, we don't care, right? And so the question is, what useful things can it do? And there's a variety, right? General metadata might allow us to browse the catalog, like show me all data sets related to Armenia, that's useful, or show me all expenditure data sets, or whatever. But the other really fundamental thing is to make visualization, and that's what Dan's about to take you through, which is to make a visualization, to go back to our diagram actually one slide above, you need to aggregate the data. Normally you need to sum up and say, you don't want to just show all these individual transactions, you want to say how much did we spend on healthcare, or how much did we spend on tanks, or how much did we spend on hospital beds, or whatever it is, some topic, or health. And that's what we need to do. So we need to aggregate, and then we need to visualize. And that's what Dan's going to show you, how describing your data in that way, plus some other stuff, allows you to aggregate. I mean, I hope I'm describing that fairly, Dan, but over to you again.
Great. So, once you have a sort of a set of data and you have it described well in your data package JSON, our thinking here is that you describe your aggregates using a file. In this case, we're calling it aggregates.json. That sort of describes how you're actually summing on these columns. So in this case, typically, for this use case right now, when we're generating a tree map, in fact, this tree map above here, we're basically summing on several levels of government classification, and we're limiting it to the year 2006, and we're also adding some ad hoc sort of conditions on the data that that make it actually true to real life, because of the way the data set is structured. There's certain sort of conditions that need to be sort of set in your actual aggregation code to actually have it be a valid representation of what's happening. Otherwise, you'll get double counting. So here's an example of the aggregate spec for this data set here. We're selecting all the fields that match econ 4. We're summing on the amount paid, and we're grouping by econ 4 and econ 5 governmental classifications. We're pulling it from the amount table, and we're limiting it to the year 2006. Now, in this case, SQL is used directly, but obviously not everyone is super, great with SQL, and it could be a very kind of hairy thing to get right sometimes. So obviously a more compact aggregation definition will be supported. But I think it is useful to have the ability to run direct SQL queries for special data sets that require it. So once you have the spec, basically you would run a simple aggregation code to sort of take, read from the CSV, run the SQL queries against the CSV to generate aggregates. In this case, we have 3 here. One is by governmental function 1, and then it would go a bit deeper. Government by function 1, then function 2, by function 1, then 2, then 3. And here's an example of one of these aggregated CSVs. In this case, we're grouping on these 3 fields here, admin 2, econ 4, econ 5, and we're getting the amounts. So there's a very simple aggregate here, and this could be stored as a flat file, and ultimately have the visualization code read this directly and generate the visualization. So here's an example of the visualization code. It actually reuses a lot of the existing OpenSpending visualization code, with the simple addition that it is just reading from a CSV file directly instead of reading from the API. In this case, for these demos and for this tests, I've been manually adding the amount column name and the currency, which are useful for doing the final amount of summing and aggregating to actually generate the visualization. But yeah, ideally the end result would you just point to the aggregated CSV URL and then run the tree map based on that. And we're almost basically there essentially. So here's the demo, a recorded screencast of me going through this process. So right now we have no aggregates written yet. And so I'm going to go into my datasets directory. I'm looking for my Boost Armenia dataset. I'm going to show you an example of the Boost Armenia CSV. Then I'm going to run my aggregation code on this CSV using my aggregates JSON file as a description of the aggregate spec. After a little bit, 3 aggregates will be generated, and you can see them here. And then obviously, we're going to use the aggregated CSVs to actually generate this wonderful visualization. Any questions on that?
So maybe one thing I could just add to people, maybe just to give, if you just went back to the, well, I mean, no, I think, by the way, I think, Dan, this is great, and we should put up this screencast. Just to maybe give a metaphor to people, the logic for us a little bit at the moment, I think, is like a road, which is, when you do the road, you dig out the road, then you put in like maybe some rubble at the bottom, then you put some finer stones, then you put the nice tarmac. So the logic here is we're going to, at the moment, some parts of this is still manual, right? We're automating gradually bits of this process of generating aggregates and visualization. Right now, some parts of that automated, so now you can automatically create your data package JSON, but you do run a script by hand. You can then write your aggregates by hand, and then you automatically generate your aggregates, and then you write a tiny bit of, there's a JavaScript library, and you still write a bit of that by hand. And gradually, we'll automate up each part of that. So at the moment, it's a bit like, your road is a bit rough, and you still drive over it, you drive over a bit slowly, but it will get faster and faster. So the logic is, as I think people have alluded to in the chat on the right, and Dan also mentioned, we will want to kind of generate some kind of language. Maybe it won't just be raw SQL. I think it's quite likely there's a more high-level description. There'll be an editor, like a visualization editor, that will allow you to create visualizations and aggregates, and that will then save that descriptor. And we'll also be building a service that automates generating the aggregate. So obviously the idea is when you save your aggregate JSON, you don't have to then install pip install qpress and then run qpress. There'll be something that will take care of that for you. And in particular, as you're using OpenSpending and you upload your data, it will go and calculate your aggregates for you, and so on. So just to explain, I think this is, and it's one of the reasons we really love alpha testers right now. If there's anyone out there who does do this, who is interested and who does know how to use GitHub, we'd love to be working with people a little bit as we try out some of this and as we start to automate more of it to see what the rough edges are. Because also, if we get the bottom of the road wrong, then when we try and build on top of it, the road won't be very good. So it's also good to get the bottom, the rubble part, and then the fine stone part right before we put the tarmac layer on the top. So that's how the kind of metaphor of how we're building up. Yeah. And that's,
yeah. I'm definitely putting my hand up to help test all of that because I'm in exactly the right position right now. I've got data that has that kind of format. It's with multiple levels of hierarchy. Cool. So you're thinking. Yes. So this QPress thing, it will kind of eventually just sort of disappear into the background somewhere. But for now, it's a front-end tool. Cool.
Yeah, it's not front end, but in the way, at the moment, the idea is getting that right. As we get that right, it just, like, for example, just take a stupid example that comes up from actually doing this with users. Like, we did this with Boost, and the guy was like, well, there's one aggregate I'd like to do where actually they've misclassified one of the categories, and if you want to do the aggregate right, what you really need to do is add money that is classified as X, but when it's what, there was quite a complicated condition where you want to move money from category X to category Y. It's something like, I think it was like, if you want to calculate wages in the healthcare classification, they misclassified wages in some way.
As goods and services.
Right, and so one of the things.
Presumably, eventually, people like end users will want to define their own aggregations of other people's data, and even probably across data sets too, and that'll just be part of the nature of defining your own views online. Exactly, and I think, so one of the things at the moment is even that discussing that, like, it's much better to discuss at the point when you're building a command line tool and like work out what's possible, what's not allowed, what you can't, at some point you're just going to say to people, you've got to go back to the raw data and do it yourself. Like there's some things that you can't perfectly support in a beautiful online, wizard GUI. And there's some things that, so it's kind of like, that's one of the reasons also doing it at this level and then moving upwards is that we get that that stuff right. And also scale. The other aspect is, it's great, we can do this with a 10 megabyte file in memory, but we've got, the UK spending data set is like 2 million transactions. Like when we, if we're going to put out an online service, how will that work? We can't just load it all into memory and run SQLite or something, So, exactly. So you want to know, do you load that into RDS? Do you run it as map producer? Like, there's some stupid questions, but just like, how does that get run and so on? And this is, again, a genuine question. Like, the guys in the, one of the requests from the World Bank was like, they use Tableau a bit, and they're like, but Tableau falls over when we give them some of the data sets and ask for a pivot table. Like, it just crashes. And, we'd really like you to support that. So it's kind of like, can we do that? So I'm aware of time, so I think I'll hand back to you, and possibly can kind of skip my part. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay, but you can make very fast. If you have few words to say about the OSDT, the OpenSpending data package, and we're happy to hear you. And then we have like around 10 minutes left. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna very quickly. I think it's the right screen I've just given you. Let me share that. Is that? Can you see the OpenSpending? Are you seeing the OpenSpending?
We can see it perfectly.
Yeah. So I'm very simply, I'm just saying, basically, the work, we've done a major update on data package, which is to introduce this kind of logical physical model distinction. We did that, the model was to do that first in OpenSpending, what's called OpenSpending data package, and that was released kind of in August after 3 or 4 actually months of reflection and several months of actual work. And we've then trialed it over the last month with actual data. Then, when seeing how that was going and some feedback, we've merged that's basically become fiscal data package. What's going to become what was called budget data package, but we've been told by the IMF and other people that it should be probably renamed to fiscal data package, and that will become stabilized. Probably some work will be done on it over the next certainly a few weeks and possibly months. But right now, it's largely going to start definitely stabilize. What will happen is some discussion about the kind of the data, the logical data or kind of model elements you should have. So you can have anything in your CSV, but what kind of things do people classically want to model in spending data? So they might want to say, well, this column is this standard classification system that people use, or this column is about transfers, or what kind of stuff like that do we want to start introducing that we standardize in the specification, at least that people can model to. And so that's what the work will be. And so that's slide 2, fiscal. We're going to work on this form versus content. I think the form is getting pretty standardized. There may be some changes to that, but the content is also getting more is also starting to definitely harden up, but there'll be some more work on that. further work to come, I should put at the bottom there. So that's basically the update there. And what's the whole way? I think we have a very strong approach here. I'm going to stop sharing for there. Is basically to really drive this by practical use with people, and also not just practical use of like describing the data, but actually doing aggregation, or actually going to do full text search, or actually build a catalog. So one of the things right now, why we're so keen to be shipping the aggregation and shipping the catalog work, is like the catalog, the aggregation work really define, it's a real test for what you describe in the dimensions and how you describe, that kind of rich model of the data. And on the general metadata, that's what you need for your catalog. Like, I want to browse by all data sets for Australia, or also data sets about Sydney, or all data sets about Kathmandu, or wherever. Or that's kind of the metadata you're then going to need to store in your data sets to have it in the catalog. So that's where we're at. And back to you, Cecile, with that then. I'm done.
Yeah, well, thank you, Rufus, for this very quick update. I think it's really useful, and I'm gonna give Paul to talk about the next step. I think there is, I don't want to scare like non-tech people that might watch later, but the import won't be from command line. So maybe Paul, you can update us on what's the next steps.
Hey, yeah. I'm going to keep it really short as well, so we have more time for questions and contribution, which is a more important step. But the next steps are basically, at the moment we have, we're working on the import UI. Most people on the call have seen mocks for that before, the data load API. We're working on the UI for that, and we have the first iteration of that shipped by the end of this month, beginning of October. Additionally, from today actually, we're starting working on a data registry. The way to discover what's in the system, find all data sets for Australia, etc. We're going to be basing that on CCAN, which is a new decision. We're going to leverage pretty much everything CCAN already has and customize it for specific needs of OpenSpending, and that will be our way to browse and discover data sets that are in the system. The simple aggregation service that Dan showed a bit earlier, we are now working on building that into a service where as soon as a data package is uploaded to the system, to give a practical example, as soon as a data package hits S3, a hook will be triggered that runs an aggregation. Aggregations are run in like a database like RDS and then written back to the flat file system. This first iteration of this aggregation as a service is also expected to be due in early October. They're the things that we're currently working on, like in the next sprint or two. That's it. The community events, I'll let you talk about that, but I will just jump ahead quickly here, is that contribution, a really great way to contribute now, which Steve brought up before. As you can see, we've put a lot of focus on spec work with direct relationship to actual data rather than theoretical spec work. And what we need now, we want all of our spec work to be driven by actual data that we have in hand. So we'd love to see more contributions of data, like for example what Steve mentioned earlier. And then we can work, myself or Dan can actually work with you on the data that you have, understand how it relates to the modeling that we're working on, and that will help us bring the spec forward and ensure that we're covering as many use cases as we can for OpenSpending. So that's just a way to invite you to come in and contribute. Is by contributing data would be one of the most important ways that you could help now.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll pass back to you now, Cecile, because we're really running low.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you, Paul. That is useful. So if you if you want to contribute, then you know how and the steps. I'm gonna also pass it over to the Open Knowledge Germany ladies for a few minutes. I know that I want to introduce Anna Alberts, also who is gonna chair or our steering committee, who is now active and is going to meet in 10 days. So if you have something to say, and after I will love to hear Mara also, that she can maybe give a few words about the DQWIS project. So over to you.
Okay,
ladies.
thanks, Cecile. As Cecile, yeah, really just a few words about it. We are discussing also in the room of open knowledge, of open budgets. We're also discussing how to bring the community back together around OpenSpending Next, as these two are merging. So we are planning a workshop in November, which you will be hearing more about at the end of September. And we're working on, and as I said, we are, as Cecile said, we have emailed everyone from the steering group committee, and we're coming back together next week already. And yeah, we will also be reporting back about this call to the steering group, and then do the very same thing in your next call again. So that was what comes from me.
Absolutely.
And then Mara on the list.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. As I just said earlier, so I'm going to make this really short, and you can get in touch with me if you have any questions. I would propose. So as I just said earlier, DigiWiz is specifically on procurement data, and we work with the University of Cambridge, with the Hertie School of Governance here in Berlin, with the university in Milan, and two partners, one in Hungary, one in Czech Republic, on procurement data. And what we're gonna produce at the end of the project is one tool, which is a risk assessment tool for public officials who actually do procurement. It's a corruption risk assessment tool. The second product is our web portals on procurement built with the procurement data actually, and this is something that we develop at Open Knowledge Germany, including the mobile apps of the same portals for 35 jurisdictions basically. And yeah, so that's basically what we're doing at the moment, and some of the deliverables we just started in March, and some of the deliverables have been already handed into the European Commission, because it's also a Horizon 2020 project, and they're quite interesting because one was the mapping of the procurement data that is already out there. So if you're interested, I can share this with you. Because it's a really good overview of European landscape and on procurement data. And the other one is more technical. It's the data management plan. So those are the two things. That was really quick now. There's much more. And, maybe we can, yeah, please do get in touch with me if you have any further questions.
I mean, maybe also, Mara, just to add one thing very briefly from mine, because I know we're at time, but there's also a kind of thought that obviously open spending very much is designed to include procurement data, like, you know, spending against contracts or commitments in contracts, or that kind of style of information. Not obviously not to store contract documents, but to store data about contracts. And so there is some discussion about how we can connect, and certainly on the stakeholder and community front, connect up, because I think all the people, generally people who are interested in government contracts data are also interested in, you know, they're interested in financial information and where money goes and who it gets spent with. And so we really have a lot of connection there between the projects. So that's one of the real desires here, is to definitely connect up the two projects there.
Yeah, one that I might want to share with this community here, we're still looking for a front-end developer actually to develop the portals. So please feel free to share our job ad. It's on our blog in English. So if you know someone, and also maybe it would be interesting to get in touch with you, Paul, or at some point when we have hired someone, that this person would get in touch with you.
Great. Great.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll pass it over. Absolutely.
Okay.
Nice. Well, thank you, Maris. Thank you, Anna, for this quick but really useful contributions. I think, yeah, we have maybe a few minutes for questions because you're really active on the side note. So, does anyone has something to share with the public? A question, something, a comment? Nope. Nikesh?
Yeah, no, not really.
Okay.
The one thing I only say, Nikesh, if you or any colleagues want to try anything out, please be in touch on the forum, and we'd love to try with you, just as we will work with Steve or anyone else you know. We'd love to be in touch and support you in trying any of the new stuff out.
Yeah, we are trying to build. We are trying to build something like OpenSpending Nepal.org. Yeah, definitely I'll be in touch with you guys.
Great, that would be fantastic.
Yes.
So yeah, let us know who we should, whether it's you or anyone else we should speak to. That would be fantastic.
Sure.
So does all the conversation happen in the forum?
That and IRC. Obviously, IRC is live, but the forum is not quite so live.
Okay. Yeah. I think I got the forum totally wrong. I didn't see that the pinned ones up the top. So I thought there hadn't been any posts in months. It turned out that they're all like from 5 threads down.
Yeah, we maybe need to unpin some stuff there. Maybe that's a good.
Yeah, I just totally got it wrong.
But
Great.
specifically, Stephen, on assets and liabilities, we will sync on that this week because we're definitely interested to integrate.
Yeah, I'm actually relatively free at the moment. I don't have a huge amount else going on, so.
Great.
Excellent.
We'll be in touch. Great. Well, maybe we should stop broadcast now. And
absolutely.
Then
yes.
If we want to keep chatting, we can keep chatting.
Exactly. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you everyone for watching. This Hangout is now over. And yes.